And we're back one more time with episode 263 of
The Horror Guys! Yay!
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And
we're going to talk about horror movies. 4 horror movies and a short.
Ooh.
And we will briefly mention a couple bonus films, too.
We will.
Yeah.
Well, what do we got?
Oh, we got a brand new one for us anyway. It was released internationally before, but we're just getting it now. The Human Trap, which was pretty darn cool. And Jason X, the 10th movie.
It's not a Mac product. I think it's Jason 10.
Okay. Lust of the Vampire, an older film, which was kind of cool. And Ghoulies, an 80s classic. Okay, I'm going to call it a classic.
I think it's a classic at this point.
Yeah. And a couple of bonus films that we're going to briefly mention. Saw 5, we're working our way through the series. And Robocop, which is heavily sci-fi, but, you know, a lot of comedy and definitely a horror element to it.
Sorta.
Well,
we watched it. We'll squeeze it in.
We'll squeeze it in.
It's a bonus film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, you get killed and, you know, they put your brain in a robot body. And
that's right. He's a zombie.
Yeah, you can barely remember who you are or that you're even human. So, yeah, I think that had a horror element to it.
I was thinking more of the toxic waste dump, but okay.
Well, that too, yeah. Like Toxie the Avenger, only he doesn't get superpowers from it.
No, he just sort of melts.
Yeah.
All right, well, be sure to go over to horrorbulletin.com, sign up for our weekly email letter. Check out horrorguys.com if you want to read the reviews from one day to the next, or go to Horror Guys Shop and pick up one of our many excellent books on horror films. Many excellent books on horror films.
You should collect them all.
Yeah. If you're not big on getting that email in your email box every week from Horror Bulletin, you can always pick up the paperbacks or the ebook version.
Ooh, pick up both.
Yeah, go to horrorguysshop.com and look around. You'll find all the stuff you need there.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, over on the podcast, we have The Human Trap from 2023.
A South Korean movie.
Is it?
Yes.
I swear that one guy in the beginning was speaking Japanese.
There could be some of that in there.
Yeah, all these names look very Korean.
But it is a South Korean movie, and it's subtitled.
Okay.
But totally worth the read.
The read, yes.
Yeah.
Written and directed by Lee Moon-young. Stars Ken Byul, Kim Dong-ho, and Park Yan-woo. No doubt about Korean there.
Mm-hmm.
1 hour, 24 minutes. And there is a trailer in the show notes. This one just released a couple days ago, so most likely you haven't seen it, so we're not going to spoil it to death. Spoiler-free, what happens?
This delighted the horror guys. We were expecting something from the trailer and got something different. And
yeah, it looks like one thing in the trailer, and we're like, oh, it's going to be that.
I like when I am pleasantly surprised by a movie, and this one pleasantly surprised me because it was so good and so unexpected. There's a lot going on, a lot more than you think from the trailer.
The trailer makes it look like, you know, there's a guy just hunting people out in the woods.
Yeah, like the most dangerous game kind of thing. It's more complicated
It's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, we give it a couple strong thumbs up.
Yes.
And Brian's going to give you a little teaser.
Not all of it.
We're not going to spoil it. Yeah.
Well, a young couple sits in a coffee shop, and he's shocked at how eager she is to just get to the sex part. And that was the very first scene, and we both thought that was kind of funny.
It was. So,
and he's like doing the small talk, and she's like, can we just go have sex?
Yeah, and she chugs her drink. You know, like, let's go.
The next thing we know, they're parked in his car in the middle of the action when his phone goes off with the most annoying ringtone ever. Do you have to answer that?
He does.
Well, his friend wants to go camping. He says no because he's in the middle of something. But the girl says, yeah, she's into that. Camping alone with 2 guys? They can all have sex there.
Yeah, even better.
And he's not going to turn that down. Well, the 3 arrive where they plan to camp and hear gunfire out in the woods. Well, an older man, their temporary guide, meets the group, and he talks to the man with the gun on the phone. He says it's a wild boar that the other man is hunting. Yet there's another girl who goes along with them, so there are 5 in the car now. One of the girls gets a notification on her phone that the funeral home bill for her mother is overdue, so she throws the phone out the window. That was a bit of an overreaction.
It was, but then, you know, the trope of, you know...
I kept thinking they'd come back to that phone later.
No, they didn't. No. It just adds to the trope of, you know, being out in the middle of nowhere with no phone service. Well, she literally doesn't have a phone. So.
Well, the group parks their car and walks up the sides of a woodsy mountain. They walk past some bear traps, so this looks like just a great place to camp.
Yeah, watch your step.
Don't leave the camp area.
Yeah.
Well, the guide drops them off at a tent and warns of the traps in the woods, but now he has to go off to a church service. And I noticed that the blurb and the story and everything that you read about this said that they are kidnapped by a Christian wacko, a Christian something or other. And you know, his religion and church, it got mentioned
That
once or
was
twice, but it was a
really
very minor
point.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's a wacko.
I was expecting to be like right-wing
Yeah.
fundamentalists or something like that, but
No,
it's almost a non-issue.
It's not about the religion at all. No.
No. Well, we cut to a dirty, hungry man in the same woods, eating food from a dog's bowl. He smells the meat from the camper's grill and heads their way. One of the guys finds a mannequin in the woods and thinks that is just hilarious. They all talk and interact for a bit, so we get to know the four young people a little better. Well, then the homeless-looking guy arrives in camp, and he's got a big knife. He takes their stuff, including Shyrim's clothes and Ki Young's phone. Actually, then, he takes all their phones. They break into the park manager's office and find dozens of dead phones in there, along with watches and jewelry. And they only have one phone charger, and it's broken.
Oops.
Well, they want to walk back down the mountain, but it's nearly dark, and there's a lot of bear traps out there. Well, we're going to stop at that point.
We are, because stuff gets complicated from
Yeah.
there.
Okay, and as we already mentioned, this did not go the way we were expecting from the trailer. It kind of looked like The Most Dangerous Game, you know, where the hunter chases after humans.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little element of that, but there's a lot more going on here than just a crazy hunter. Turned out to be a lot better than either of us were expecting. We definitely recommend it.
Yeah, big thumbs up.
Yeah. So are you feeling lusty?
I am. I am lusting for a vampire.
Lust of the Vampire from 1957, also known as I, Vampiri, and also The Devil's Commandment. I guess the lust of the vampire was a bit strong for American audiences in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, The Devil's Commandment wasn't.
Yeah.
Directed by Riccardo Freda and Mario Bava. Written by Piero Ragnoli, Mario Bava, and Riccardo Freda. Stars Gianna Marie Canale, Carlo D'Angelo, and Dario Michaelis. Hour and 22 minutes. This is listed on a lot of those classic giallo movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, it's
It's
been a while since
pretty
we watched
tame.
it.
As far as giallo movies, it's a tame one.
And until I had read this to put in the newsletter yesterday, I didn't remember what this was even about.
Yeah. I mean, it's good, but it's tame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks good with excellent sets and effects. It's a bit of a mystery. Who is this vampire that's draining bodies of blood? It's more complicated than that, and worth the watch to find out. Well, spoil it for us.
Well, some boys in Paris find a body floating in the river, and the body has not a single drop of blood in it, or any real injuries, just like the others.
It's been 4 girls in 6 months.
Uh-oh. Well, they call the killer the vampire, and reporter Pierre wants to break the case. And we cut to someone breaking into a file cabinet with medical records. The person pulls out a file for Nora. Well, then we go to Nora, who's reading the newspaper about one of the murders. She's waiting after her work for her boyfriend Giorgio. And we see a shadowy man approaching her dressing room. The man walks up behind her and chloroforms her. And she's reported missing. But Pierre, the reporter guy, thinks the vampire might be involved. Well, the forensic police say that all the victims were the same blood type, and they all have traces of needle marks on their bodies. Pierre asks some of the schoolgirls about Morel, the girl from the river, and they describe a man who had been following them. Gazelle goes to see Pierre. She wants Pierre to stop up and visit her at the castle. A man orders a drug addict to do something to Lisette, and he gives the addict an injection. So there's a lot of weird things happening.
Things are happening, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of disjointed. And I was impressed with how they showed all these weird, almost choppy things and brings it together very nicely. Do I have to spoil it all? Because this
It is a mystery, isn't
this
it?
is really spoilery, and it's going to completely give away the mystery. I could read a little more.
A little more, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Pierre follows a man home, but when he brings the police inspector later, the man inside is different. It's a whole different apartment. And the policeman thinks Pierre has lost his mind. So what's going on there? Well, Joseph, the strange man, goes to see Professor Julien Dugrand for more drugs. The professor's assistant strangles the man. A woman talks from the shadows and says his death could mean the ruin for all of them. Margarita, the old woman, demands that the professor fake his own death.
Well, this is getting complicated.
It
Maybe we
is.
should stop.
Yeah, it gets complicated. So there's a rich old lady in the castle, and people getting killed, and people have to fake their own deaths.
And a vampire.
Or is there? I mean, these girls are getting drained of blood, but why? And who's doing it?
Well, again, we're not going to spoil it here, but if you want to read the whole review, it's over at horrorguys.com or horrorbulletin.com. Either place has it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tame. It's certainly got the horror element.
Or better yet, just watch it.
Yeah, you should watch it because it was surprisingly cool.
The scenery, sets, and cinematography here are all excellent. A lot of time went into creating some of those sets. It's pretty slow-paced, and, well, there's a spoiler.
Yeah, don't say that.
This was the first Italian-made horror film of the sound era in 1957.
Yeah, I like how you skipped all those spoilers.
There were some spoilers there, yes.
Yeah. So beware if you read it before you see it, you're going to get spoiled. But yeah, we'd recommend seeing this one because it was a cool figuring out what's going on and who's doing what. And yeah, liked it a lot.
Was this color?
No, I think that one was black and white.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Short film, 100,000 Acres of Pine from 2020.
A cartoon.
Animation.
Okay.
Directed by Jennifer Alice Wright. Art director Helena Luca B. Shulin. Stars Sarah Arias, Jessica Cleland, Lawrence Marvey, and Kirk Johnson. 6 minutes, 45 seconds. And you can watch it at the YouTube link we've got in the show notes.
Absolutely free on YouTube.
What happens?
Well, someone gets into a truck and puts a cassette tape into the player. Or a stranger narrates what happened to him as we progress through the story. Ranger Megan talks about her recently deceased brother who died mysteriously in the forest. Well, she goes out to investigate what happened to him. And she finds out.
The missing brother is the guy on the tape, by the way.
Yeah. It's stop motion animation, and it does look really good. I don't mean to dismiss it, just saying it's a cartoon, because it was really good. The narration from the Dead Brothers cassette and the location itself, it's got kind of a Twin Peaks vibe to it.
It very much does.
Yeah. It was really effective, and we thought it was pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Needs to be a full 2-hour movie, and then a series that follows like Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah.
Who killed Ranger, what is his name? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Fire Walk with Me and 10,000 Acres of Pine.
Yeah. Which takes us to our next film, Ghoulies from 1985. Directed by Luca Bertovici. Written by Luca Bertovici and Jeffrey Levy. Stars Peter Liapis, Lisa Pelican, Michael DeBars, and Jack Nance. Hour and 21 minutes. Spoiler-free, it's a story of magic and possession that moves steadily and stays interesting throughout. The effects are dated, but they get the job done. There aren't a lot of surprises, but it's memorable and worth the watch.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say it's held up, but there's a lot to like about it still.
When this came out, I watched it like 2 or maybe 3 times in the theater. I really liked this one when it came out.
Oh, yeah, I saw it later. I didn't saw it when it came out.
Last week when we watched it, it was like, eh.
I think
it did not hold up as well as I thought it would.
My favorite part of it is the 2 little magical people.
Okay. Grumble and Growler.
Grumble and Growler. I can't remember their name. I'm blanking out on their names. Yeah, because they're weird and
Grizzle and Greedy Gut.
Yeah. They play well off each other, and yeah, they were my favorite part of it. Shall I tell them a little bit about it?
Tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, we see a number of little creatures, the Ghoulies.
This is almost 40 years old, by the way. So
yeah. So I don't have to worry about spoiling it. They're hanging in cages and hanging around the altar as a bunch of cultists prepare to do a ritual. The leader of the cult, Malcolm, chants and his eyes glow. He pulls out a dagger to sacrifice a baby. But before he can do it, one of the cultists runs up and grabs the baby. Well, he uses his magic to retake the baby, his own son, but yet another cultist, Wolfgang, also turns against him and takes the baby. As Wolfgang and the baby leave the house and cross the field, Malcolm tears out the woman cultist's heart.
It's all fun and games till it's time to sacrifice a baby.
Yeah, and credits roll. Well, years pass. All grown up now, the baby Jonathan has inherited his father's estate. He and Rebecca walk to the estate and find a creepy-looking old grave. Wolfgang meets Rebecca, and it's clear he doesn't say much anymore. While cleaning the basement, Jonathan finds a pentagram and candles on the floor, a box that also contains his father's robes, books, and other magical doodads. Rebecca wants to have a housewarming party, and so they invite their weird 80s montage of friends. There's Mike, Eddie, Dick, Robin, and Mark, the Toad Boy, who are all there. Diana talks about how she went on a date once with the Toad Boy. Well, Mike break dances until all the pills, joints, and drugs fall out of his pockets.
It's the 80s.
It is, yeah. They discuss what to do after the party, and Jonathan suggests, hey, let's do a ritual.
As one does.
Mm-hmm. Well, they all go down to the basement, and Jonathan draws a circle pentagram from the book he found. Seems harmless enough so far. And he does a very serious-sounding ritual, but nothing happens. So they all go upstairs, and a few minutes later, a ghoulie appears.
Nobody's around to see it, though.
Turns out it did work, yeah. Well, the next day, Jonathan starts cleaning up the house and ends up doing another ritual in the basement. And he soon becomes addicted to magic. Or is he just being used by his father's spirit? He paints a very elaborate spell circle on the floor and then makes a cool amulet, which he gives to Rebecca. That night, he summons up some more ghoulies, and this time he knows what he's doing, and he sees the ghoulies. He tells them they can roam the grounds, but they have to remain invisible to everybody else. And they don't say anything. They're just grunting little slimy creatures. They're kind of cute in a horrible kind of way. Well, he continues to practice his magic until Rebecca comes home early and catches him in the act. He apologizes and promises to stop. They have sex that night, but down under the bed, the ghoulies have made their own magic circle. Jonathan recites a chant through the act, which annoys Rebecca, so she leaves. Well, for his next trick, Jonathan conjures up two magical little people, Grizzle and Greedy Gut, who vow to serve him. And they say he can do whatever he wants if he does his master ritual, which requires 7 other people. So it's time to invite the weird friends back. Rebecca returns and wants Jonathan to leave the house and go away with her. Well, she sees his green glowing eyes and freaks out, understandably, but he uses his magic to make her stay. And brings back the friends to return for another dinner party. And the friends all go into a trance, so Jonathan seems to beam them down into the basement, where Grizzle and Greedy Gut wait to perform the big ritual, as the ghoulies watch from the shadows. Well, they all chant, the grave out in the backyard lights up, and old dead Malcolm rises from the grave.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's not good. Afterward, Jonathan tells them all to pick a room for the night. They don't seem to remember the ritual or anything. They just kind of wake up at the dinner table. Well, we soon see that the ghoulies do only serve one master, Malcolm. Mark and Donna are next to the fountain when a group of ghoulies attack them. Inside, Eddie and Mike laugh at how much of a screamer she is. Elsewhere, Robin is attacked by a clown puppet that bleeds green ooze out of its eyes.
The 80s were the great time for clown puppets.
Clowns were scary. Before long, Jonathan finds all of his friends are in comas, and Rebecca is unconscious. Well, Malcolm enters the room and says that Jonathan has always been doing his bidding. He's looking a little better, but far from good. He's pretty ghoulish looking. Malcolm plans to steal Jonathan's youth, and it seems that Jonathan has lost whatever power he had. Rebecca sits up, and the little people warn Jonathan that it's a trap. Don't fall for it.
Whose side are they on?
Yeah, well, they're kind of on the fence, yeah. Well, suddenly Wolfgang comes in, also wearing wizard robes, and stabs Malcolm in the back. They have a magic fight with various colored lightning bolts before they both vanish. Jonathan and Rebecca run outside in the commotion, taking all their formerly dead friends with them. They drive off, and as Grizzle and Greedy Gut wave to them. And Rebecca asks, is it really over? Is it? No, we see a bunch of ghoulies in the back seat. Yeah, they didn't go away.
Well, surprisingly, I really liked this one when it came out and remember seeing it multiple times in the theaters. I may have been a little too young at the time to see how bad it was then, but I can see some flaws now. The Ghoulies themselves are just simple puppets, but they're good looking and have a lot of fun. The acting is fine, the pacing is good, the characters are distinct and memorable for the 80s, but the overall plot is pretty unsurprising.
Yeah, you do kind of see where it's going.
Yeah, it looks good, but there's just not really a lot to it.
But if you 80s horror, it's kind of iconic.
Yeah,
And a kind of iconic example of.
If you're into the 80s, you have to see Ghoulies.
Yeah.
You don't have to like it, but you have to see it.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the Goonies, which is even worse.
Oh, the Goonies isn't really horror, so.
Well,
not really.
Well, I went to the Goonies thinking it was kind of horror looking from the trailers.
Yeah, it's not.
Get
so
that
much.
big ugly guy and evil scary pirates, and yeah, it's not horror, but it
Okay.
it advertised
It wanted
itself
to
as
be.
that.
Yeah.
One that you're not going to argue about being horror too much is 2001's Jason X, or Jason 10. And yes, it really is the 10th movie.
Mm-hmm.
Directed by James Isaac, written by Todd Farmer and Victor Miller, stars Kane Hodder, Lexa Doig, Jeff Geddes, and David Cronenberg. Hour and 32 minutes, trailer in the show notes. Spoiler free.
Well, who knew that all Friday the 13th needed was a heavy dash of science fiction? This time, Jason is further away from Crystal Lake than he's ever been.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, both in time and space. And this also takes it away from the classic slasher trope, but it's still pretty entertaining in its own way.
Yeah, this one gets a lot of flack for being, in space.
Which deserves a little bit of flack, but
A little bit, yeah.
But it's
definitely a jump the shark trope.
But it's still entertaining.
Yeah, I liked it. It was good.
Yeah, it's kind of different than the others, but yeah, I thought it was fun.
I'm pretty sure this is the last of the Friday the 13th movies before they did the reboots.
And then things got complicated with the royalties, because somebody has royalties to Jason, and somebody else has royalties to Friday the 13th. They split somehow.
Yeah, the last several of these the Jason movies were not called Friday the 13th. They just Jason whatever. Jason Takes Manhattan or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, we open in hell, because Jason Goes to Hell was the previous movie.
Mm-hmm.
As the camera zooms out, we see a doctor working in a lab as credits roll. We then cut to the Crystal Lake Research Facility, with the subject being Jason Voorhees, awaiting cryogenic suspension. Because that little town of Crystal Lake where they had the campground has a cryogenic research facility.
They put a lot of money into it. The government became interested.
Jason is awake, but chained and hooked up to a bunch of medical-looking tubes. The attendant gets creeped out and throws a sheet over Jason's face. Dr. Wimmer arrives to take possession of Jason, and Rowan says it's not worth risking transporting him. Wimmer says Jason's ability to regenerate would be a great leap forward in medical science. Wimmer then overrules Rowan and goes in to see the monster.
So they've really taken away the supernatural element in this one. It's science.
Yeah, sort of.
Sort of.
Well, they pull the sheet off, and it's the attendant underneath.
Uh-oh.
Switcheroo.
Uh-huh.
There's a big gunfight as Wimmer gets impaled. I'd like to know how Jason got that machete so easily.
Yeah, he didn't have a machete, and yet
Suddenly he did.
Suddenly he's got a machete.
Where'd he have that stuck?
Yeah. Oh.
Well, Jason chases Rowan around the huge industrial-looking facility. She backs him into a cryogenic chamber and freezes him solid. Never see him again, I bet.
Right.
Well, he stabs through the door, and Rowan as well, causing a lockdown that traps her inside as the chamber leaks and freezes the entire room.
Yep, Jason and her and the whole room gets frozen.
I don't think those kind of things get that cold.
Well, I don't think they work like that either.
No.
No.
People in gas masks descend into the cobweb-filled facility. They open the cryogenic lab door, and they mention that the cryo unit was from 2010, and they waste no time in opening the big door to Jason's chamber. They also find Rowan, who is frozen along with everything else. KM-14, an android, says she can be revived. Just then, Jason's frozen corpse falls over, cutting off Azrael's arm in the process.
He doesn't even have to be living to
Even
do
as a
this stuff.
frozen icicle, he's cutting people's arms off.
Yeah.
The group carries everything out into the post-apocalyptic hellscape outside their spaceship. Jason's been frozen for 450 years. And they soon dock with the mothership somewhere near Jupiter. Well, things have changed in Crystal Lake.
In 450 years, yeah.
They rush Rowan to the lab, and that other big frozen corpse along with her, too. They fix Azrael's arm quickly in the rejuvenation booth, and Professor Rowe takes over the resuscitation attempt on Rowan. They cover her up with regenerative nanobots, and she's soon just fine and awake. The first thing she asks is it contained?
Well,
Well,
sort of.
Professor Rowe's boss asks if the other specimen is Jason Voorhees, who went missing and probably would be worth a fortune for research. Well, Adrienne examines Jason. He's got an undersized brain, and his skin is unusual. You're telling me.
Mm-hmm.
She cuts off his mask, and he's a real mess underneath. Of course, he's slowly defrosting the whole time, and it's not long before we see him twitching and flexing.
Should have left him frozen.
Meanwhile, almost everyone else aboard the ship is having sex, because this is a slasher movie.
Yep.
Jason sits up and grabs Adrienne, freezing her head solid in liquid nitrogen and then smashing it. He then picks up a surgical machete.
He's got a machete again.
Why would you have a machete
Why would you
in
have
surgery?
why would you have a knife that big? Yeah, but it's a thing for Jason.
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, Rowe talks to Rowan about her ordeal, and she explains about the several attempts to execute Jason, but they just could never kill him. But they could freeze him. Rowan meets all the other people, but we get a full set of introductions of all the characters now. Rowan learns that Jason has been brought aboard and warns everyone that he cannot die. Rowe insists that they have it all under control.
They did not have it under control.
She wants to see him, and they all find Adrian's dead corpse. Elsewhere on the ship, Jason kills someone else. Sergeant Brodsky gets on the case and prepares his Marines for battle. I'm sure it's going to be just like Aliens.
Space Marines.
A couple of soldiers play on the holodeck, shooting big aliens. Then Jason appears and cuts both the humans into little pieces. Nope, that was just their digital avatars. They end the game, and Jason is still there.
And that's funny too when they're fighting the holographic monsters and Jason walks in and they're
They think
like,
he's one of
is
them."
this a, I've never seen that program before. What is that? And then they realize, oh, he's real.
But-
they realize it hard.
When they turn off the holodeck, they don't live long in the real world either.
Yeah.
Well, the soldiers find Jason and shoot him rather excessively, but he's gone when all the smoke clears. Soon everyone is wary of dark corridors and the shadowy engine rooms. It becomes obvious that Rowan was right. Jason cannot be killed. On the other hand, the soldiers can be, and they soon are.
And it's one of those lots of gunfire on a spaceship situations. I was watching
A submarine movie
this
the other
week.
day,
This
yeah.
week, I saw a couple of submarines. One of them was U-571, which was actually a decent movie. But oh my gosh, the gunfire on the submarine!
Every bullet that doesn't go inside somebody's body is going in walls or machinery in a submarine.
And it's the same way in a spaceship. And yeah, they're okay. Same here.
Well, spaceships are probably a little more heavy duty than submarines.
I don't know.
Well, the ship approaches the big space station, but Jason kills the pilot, and the ship crashes right into the space station and then continues on past it when it explodes.
Yeah, that was something.
I don't know about body count, but that really bumped up Jason's number.
Oh, it sure did.
There was like
yeah.
100,000 people on that space station.
Like a city. It was basically a city in space. Not anymore.
Yeah, you always see those body count posts on Facebook, and it says Jason has like 150.
No, he's got
No,
more
they
than
forgot about that scene.
that. Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Jason and the professor have a one-sided discussion about money. Everyone else decides to make for the shuttle, and they all split up, because it's a slasher movie. Kinsa steals the escape shuttle, but the fuel lines are still attached, and it explodes. Now there's no way off the ship.
Now you've done it.
KM-14 gets a battle upgrade, and she's all super soldiery, until Jason stabs her once. Nope, she fakes it. She shoots him repeatedly. She shoots his arm off, and shoots his leg off. Jason falls down, and he shoots him into little pieces.
Yeah, she just really blows him apart.
Another ship radios that they can help, but there may not be enough time before the ship explodes. They fix up Brodsky in the medical bay, and they make plans to separate the exploding part of the ship from where they are. It's crazy, but it just might work.
It might.
Except they didn't notice that Jason's bits and pieces are laying on the medical bed, which is active.
Ah, that loyal computer is fixing up. Oh, somebody's hurt.
The nanites do their thing, and they rebuild him stronger, faster, and better. It's a whole new, upgraded Jason.
Cyber Jason.
And he does look pretty cool.
Yeah, he does.
As the humans work to save the ship, the new and improved cyborg Jason shows up, and he's more than a match for KM-14 this time. They detonate the explosives to split the ship in two, and Jason's on the other side. Right?
Yep, it's fine.
Well, the rescue ship arrives outside. Jason decompresses the hull by punching through it from the outside. Okay, maybe the hull isn't that strong.
No, well, it's not Jason-proof.
The rescue ship docks with them, but they can't get the door open, so Brodsky has to go outside and rewire something. They distract Jason by turning on the holodeck and setting him to a very familiar-looking camp by the lake. They just happen to have that programmed in there, huh?
No, I think they can improvise and whip things up quick.
There are even some stereotypical holographic teens there that he can kill. Make him feel right at home.
And it was funny because the teens are so over the top. It's a couple of bikini-clad girls, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna go do some drugs after I have sex," and I'm gonna, they're just going on about.
They're parodying their own movie.
All the tropes that Jason, that Jason killed the teens for, and yeah.
Well, the humans get the airlock doors open and run across to the rescue ship as things start to explode. Brodsky seals the other outside while he waits to die with Jason. The whole ship explodes. Only Rowan, Sunaran, and KM's severed head have survived. Jason and Brodsky fall from orbit, presumably burning up on re-entry. Down on the surface, a couple of sexy teen campers see the meteor and note that it landed in the nearby lake.
Uh-oh.
All right, well, clearly it's not aliens, but that's the story they were trying to parallel here.
A little bit, yeah.
If you include all the dead people on the Solaris space station, this is probably the highest body count ever in a Jason movie.
It wasn't a direct kill, but, it's in a Jason movie. He
It's
should
his
get
fault.
credit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was his fault.
The music, I like the music in this, and it kind of sounds like something from Hellraiser, which would have been the crossover we really need.
That would have been interesting.
Jason versus Pinhead.
Uh-huh.
But not this time. The sets look good, the acting is atypical for this kind of story, and the plot is fun. The spaceship CGI is kind of dated, but it works. Well, when any franchise does its version of
In space.
they're clearly scraping the barrel for ideas, but it's not always bad. This one's more of a sci-fi monster in an enclosed space story than a Friday the 13th story, but it is kind of fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah. Probably not a bad movie to end Jason on
Yeah, it's all right.
until the reboots.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it for today. If you check out horrorbulletin.com, you can read our reviews on Saw V. Goes next with Jason X and Saw V.
5.
Oh,
V.
5.
Yes.
I thought you were going to saw a V in somebody, like V.
And you know what? John Jigsaw definitively died, and yet here we are
He's
making
back.
more. Here we are making more, and his work continues. And it's interesting how they did that. Thought it was very creative.
Yeah, they do figure out new ways to bring him back after dying in the, third or fourth movie at some point, yeah.
Uh-huh.
He's
Yeah.
dead, but
Yeah,
not really.
There's no doubt that, yeah.
And also, we also watched Robocop from 1987, a classic bit of science fiction with lots of dark comedy and social commentary mixed in, and it's ultra-violent in an 80s kind of way. There is definitely a horror element there, bringing back the dead and some other things.
Yeah, it's in there. Little kernels of it, a little sprinkling of horror. Yeah.
Does it hold up?
I thought so.
I thought so, yeah it's still good.
I consider it a classic.
There's a few things in it that are a little clunky. The big Ed 209 robot is very clearly stop motion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, overall, it's still good. It's still
a
worth
hoot.
watching, yeah.
It's a hoot. Yeah.
He's a hoot,
Yes,
yes.
it is.
All right, but that's it for this week. Stop in next week where we will have 4 more movies and a short for you.
All right.
We got some good ones. One new film we got called The Dorothy Project.
Mm-hmm.
We watched that just yesterday, and we liked it.
It's just officially coming out this coming week.
It's like the lowest budget movie I've ever seen that I liked.
It,
Possibly.
They do such a nice job with it.
It's clearly,
low budget.
2 guys in an abandoned factory.
Well, and we look for that sort of thing too. An average viewer might not even notice. The tricks they use to cover up their lack of. Yeah, I thought it was really well done.
It was, yeah. Well, we'll talk about that next week.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Until then, I'm Brian,
and I'm Kevin.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.